Now, does someone remember where we are? Text 2. Chapter 1.
Second or third page I have, depending on, it'll be different in different books.
Yeah, depending on the layout.
Yeah.
All right. Reading from Bhagavad-Gita as it is. Chapter 1, verse 2. Sanjaya uvacha drishtva tu pandavanikam yudham duryadanastada acharyam upasangamya raja vachanamabrabit. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Purport. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth. Unfortunately, he was also bereft of spiritual vision. He knew very well that his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion, and he was sure that they could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas, who were all pious since birth. Since he was doubtful about the influence of the place of pilgrimage, and Sanjaya could understand his motive in asking about the situation on the battlefield, Sanjaya wanted, therefore, to encourage the despondent king, and thus assured him that his sons were not going to make any sort of compromise under the influence of the holy place. Sanjaya therefore informed the king that his son Duryodhana, after seeing the military force of the Pandavas, at once went to the commander-in-chief, Dronacharya, to inform him of the real position. Although Duryodhana is mentioned as the king, he still had to go to the commander on account of the seriousness of the situation. He was therefore quite fit to be a politician. But Duryodhana's diplomatic veneer could not disguise the fear he felt when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas. Text 3. Pashaitam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Byudhang Drupadaputrena Tavashishena Dimata. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Purport. Duryodhana, a great diplomat, wanted to point out the defects of Dronacharya, the great Brahmana commander-in-chief. Dronacharya had some political quarrel with King Drupada, the father of Draupadi, who was Arjuna's wife. As a result of this quarrel, Drupada performed a great sacrifice by which he received the benediction of having a son who would be able to kill Dronacharya. Dronacharya knew this perfectly well, and yet as a liberal Brahmana, he did not hesitate to impart all his military secrets when the son of Drupada, Drishtadyumna, was entrusted to him for military education. Now, on the battlefield of Kuruksetra, Drishtadyumna took the side of the Pandavas, and it was he who arranged for their military phalanx after having learned the art from Dronacharya. Duryodhana pointed out this mistake of Dronacharya's so that he might be alert and uncompromising in the fighting. By this he wanted to point out that he should not be similarly lenient in battle against the Pandavas, who were also Dronacharya's affectionate students. Arjuna especially was his most affectionate and brilliant student. Duryodhana also warned that such leniency in the fight would lead to defeat. Text 4. Atrashura Maheshwasa Bhimarjuna Samayudhi Yuyudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharataha. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. Purport. Even though Drishtadyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in the military art, there were many others who were causes of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory, because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. Text 5. Drishtaketus Chekitanak Kashirajas Chabiryavan Purujit Kuntiba Bojascha Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha. There are also great heroic powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraj, Purujit, Kuntiboja, and Shaibhya. Text 6. Yudhamanyuscha Vikranta Utamaujas Chabiryavan Saubhadro Draupadeyascha Sarva Eva Maharataha. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Utamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. Asmakam tu vishishtaye tanni bodha dvijotama nayaka mama sainyasya sangyartam tan brevimite. But for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who were especially qualified to lead my military force. Text 8. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitim Jayaha Ashwatthama Pikarnascha Saumadattis Tataivacha. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta, called Bhurishrava, who were always victorious in battle. Purport. Duryodhana mentions the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana, Ashwatthama is the son of Dronacharya, and Somadatti, or Bhurishrava, is the son of the king of the Balikas. Karna is the half-brother of Arjuna, and he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya's twin sister married Dronacharya. Text 9. Anye cha bahavak shura mad arte chakta jivitaha nana shastra praharana sarve yuda visharadaha. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Purport. As far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, and Shalya, they all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kuruksetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above-mentioned combined strength of his friends. Text 10. Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishma virakshitam paryaptam tvidametesham balam bhima virakshitam. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Purport. Herein, an estimation of comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general, grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited. being protected by a less experienced general, Bhima, who was like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who was a far superior general. His conclusion that he would come out of the battle victorious was well ascertained. Text 11. Ayaneshu chisarveshu yatha bhagamavastitaha bhishmam eva birakshantu bhavantak sarva eva hi. All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Purport. Duryodhana, after praising the prowess of Bhishma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhishma Dev was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man, so everyone must especially think of his protection from all sides. He might become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of Bhishma Dev. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya in the battle because he knew well that they did not even speak a word when Arjun's wife Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to appear naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas, he hoped that these generals would now completely give it up, as they had done during the gambling performances. Text 12. Tasya sanjayanam harsham kuru vridha pitamaha singha nadam vinodyat yochchai shankam dadmau pratapavan. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Purport. The grandsire of the Kuru dynasty could understand the inner meaning of the heart of his grandson Duryodhana, and out of his natural compassion for him, he tried to cheer him by blowing his conch shell very loudly, befitting his position as a lion. Indirectly, by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle, because the Supreme Lord Krishna was on the other side. But still, it was his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in that connection. Text 13. Tatak shankascha bharyascha panava nakago mukhaha sahasaiva vyahanyanta sashabdas tumalo bhavat. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Tatak shritayar harayar yukte mahati syandane stitao madhavak pandavas jaiva divyao shankao pradadmatahu. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Purport. In contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhishma Dev, the conch shells in the hands of Krishna and Arjuna are described as transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shells indicated that there was no hope of victory for the other side, because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. Jayastu Pandu Putranam Yesham Pakshe Janardanaha. Victory is always with persons, like the sons of Pandu, because Lord Krishna is associated with them. And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there, because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband. Therefore victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna, as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conch shell of Vishnu, or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated had been donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna, and this indicated that this chariot was capable of conquering all sides, wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. Text 15. Panchajanyam Rishikisho Devatatam Dhananjayaha Poundram Dadmao Mahashankam Bhimakarma Vivrikodaraha. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell, called Poundra. Purport. Lord Krishna is referred to as Rishikesh in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalists cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but he directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity, and in the case of a pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. Here in the battlefield of Kuruksetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus his particular name of Rishikesha. The Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudeva because he appeared as the son of Vasudeva. His name is Devaki Nandana because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashoda Nandana because he awarded his childhood pastimes to Yashoda at Vrindavan. His name is Parthasarathi because he worked as charioteer of his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Rishikesha because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battle of Kuruksetra. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures for different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Vrikodara because he could eat as voraciously as he could perform Herculean tasks, such as killing the demon Hidimba. So the particular types of conch shell blown by the different personalities on the side of the Pandavas, beginning with the lords, were all very encouraging to the fighting soldiers. On the other side, there were no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Director. I just got a message that I got distracted, sorry. I'll go back over that sentence. On the other side, there were no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Director, nor that of the Goddess of Fortune. So they were predestined to lose the battle. And that was the message announced by the sounds of the conch shells. Text 16 to 18. Anantavijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhisthiraha Nakolak Sahadevascha Sugosha Mani Pushpakao Kashyas Cha Parameshasa Shikandi Cha Maharataha Dristidumno Viratascha Satyakish Cha Pararjun Arjitaha Drupado Droupadeyascha Sarvasak Prithivi Pate Saubhadrascha Mahabahu Shankan Dadmu Pritak Pritak. King Yudhishthir, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijay, and Nakula and Sahadev blew the Sugosha and Manipushpaka. That great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikandi, Drishtadyumna, Bharata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi and others, O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. Purport. Sanjaya informed King Dhritarashtra very tactfully that his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons on the seat of the kingdom was not very laudable. The signs already clearly indicated that the whole Kuru dynasty would be killed in that great battle. Beginning with the grandsire Bhishma down to the grandsons like Abhimanyu and others, including kings from many states of the world, all were present there, and all were doomed. The whole catastrophe was due to King Dhritarashtra because he encouraged the policy followed by his sons. Text 19. Sagosho dhartarashtranam hridayani vyadarayat ne nabash cha pritivim chaiva tumulo bhyanunadayan. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious. Vibrating both in the sky and on the earth, it shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Purport. When Bhishma and the others on the side of Duryodhana blew their respective conch shells, there was no heartbreaking on the part of the Pandavas. Such occurrences are not mentioned, but in this particular verse it is mentioned that the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra were shattered by the sounds vibrated by the Pandavas' party. This is due to the Pandavas and their confidence in Lord Krishna. One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. Atavyaf vastitam drishtva dhartarashtran kapi dvajaha pravrite shastrasampate dhanar udyamya pandavaha rishikesham tada bhakyam idam aha mahipate. At that time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Purport. The battle was just about to begin. It is understood from the above statement that the sons of Dhritarashtra were more or less disheartened by the unexpected arrangement of military force by the Pandavas, who were guided by the direct instructions of Lord Krishna on the battlefield. The emblem of Hanuman on the flag of Arjuna is another sign of victory, because Hanuman cooperated with Lord Rama in the battle between Rama and Ravana, and Lord Ram emerged victorious. Now that both Rama and Hanuman were present on the chariot of Arjuna to help him, Lord Krishna is Rama himself, and wherever Lord Rama is, his eternal servitor Hanuman and his eternal consort Sita, the goddess of fortune, are present. Therefore, Arjuna had no cause to fear any enemies whatsoever. And above all, the Lord of the senses, Lord Krishna, was personally present to give him direction. Thus, all good counsel was available to Arjuna in the matter of executing the battle. In such auspicious conditions, arranged by the Lord for his eternal devotee, lay the signs of assured victory. Arjuna uvacha senayor ubayor madhye ratam stapaya me chuta yavat etan niriksheham yodu kamam abastitam karmaya sahayodavyam asmin rana samudyame. Arjuna said, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies, so that I may see those present here who desire to fight, and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Purport. Although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees, and thus he is addressed herein as infallible. As charioteer, he had to carry out the orders of Arjuna, and since he did not hesitate to do so, he is addressed as infallible. Although he had accepted the position of a charioteer for his devotee, his supreme position was not challenged. In all circumstances, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishikesha, the Lord of the total senses. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. He takes greater pleasure in his pure devotees assuming the advantageous position of ordering him than he does in being the giver of orders. Since he is master, everyone is under his orders, and no one is above him to order him. But when he finds that a pure devotee is ordering him, he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is the infallible master in all circumstances. Hare Krishna. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna had no desire to fight with his cousins and brothers, but he was forced to come onto the battlefield by the obstinacy of Duryodhana, who was never agreeable to any peaceful negotiation. Therefore, he was very anxious to see who the leading persons present on the battlefield were. Although there was no question of a peacemaking endeavor on the battlefield, he wanted to see them again and to see how much they were bent upon demanding an unwanted war. Text 23. Yotyamanam abhiksheham yaete tra samagataha dhartarashtrasya durbhuder yude priya chikirshivaha. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Purport. It was an open secret that Duryodhana wanted to usurp the kingdom of the Pandavas by evil plans in collaboration with his father, Dhritarashtra. Therefore, all persons who had joined the side of Duryodhana must have been birds of the same feather. Arjuna wanted to see them on the battlefield before the fight was begun, just to learn who they were. But he had no intention of proposing peace negotiations with them. It was also a fact that he wanted to see them to make an estimate of the strength which he had to face, although he was quite confident of victory because Krishna was sitting by his side. 24. Sanjaya uvacha evam ukto rishikisho gurakeshena bharata senayor upayor badye stapayitva ratotamam. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharat, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties. There it is. Purport. In this verse, Arjuna is referred to as Gudakesha. Gudaka means sleep, and one who conquers sleep is called Gudakesha. Sleep also means ignorance. So Arjuna conquered both sleep and ignorance because of his friendship with Krishna. As a great devotee of Krishna, he could not forget Krishna even for a moment, because that is the nature of a devotee. Either in waking or in sleep, a devotee of the Lord can never be free from thinking of Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Thus, a devotee of Krishna can conquer both sleep and ignorance simply by thinking of Krishna constantly. This is called Krishna consciousness, or samadhi. As Rishikesha, or the director of the senses and mind of every living entity, Krishna could understand Arjuna's purpose in placing the chariot in the midst of the armies. Thus he did so and spoke as follows. Bhishma drona pramukha tak sarvisham cha mahachitam ubacha partha pashaitan samavetan kuruniti. In the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. Purport. As the supersoul of all living entities, Lord Krishna could understand what was going on in the mind of Arjuna. The use of the word Rishikesha in this connection indicates that he knew everything. And the word Partha, meaning the son of Pritha or Kunti, is also similarly significant in reference to Arjuna. As a friend, he wanted to inform Arjuna that because Arjuna was the son of Pritha, the son of his own father, the sister of his own father, Vasudeva, he had agreed to be the charioteer of Arjuna. Now what did Krishna mean when he told Arjuna to behold the Kurus? Did Arjuna want to stop there and not fight? Krishna never expected such things from the son of his aunt Pritha. The mind of Arjuna was thus predicted by the Lord in a friendly joking. Tatra pashyat stitan partha pitrin atta pitamahan acharyan matulan bhartrin putran pautran sikingstata shashudan suridas chaiva senayor upayodapi. There Arjuna could see, within the midst of the armies of both parties, his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers-in-law and well-wishers. Purport. On the battlefield, Arjuna could see all kinds of relatives. He could see persons like Bhurishrava, who were his father's contemporaries, grandfathers Bhishma and Somadatta, teachers like Dronacharya and Kripacharya, maternal uncles like Shalya and Shakuni, brothers like Duryodhana, sons like Lakshmana, friends like Ashwatthama, well-wishers like Kritavarma, and so on. He could see also the armies which contained many of his friends. Text 27. Tan samiksha sakunteya sarvan bandhun avastitun titan kripaya paraya vishto vishidhan idamabrabid. When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. Arjuna uvacha dristvemam swajanam krishna yuyutsum samupashtitam siddhanti mamagatrani mukham cha parishushati. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up." Purport. Any man who has genuine devotion to the Lord has all good qualities which are found in godly persons or in the demigods, whereas the non-devotee, however advanced he may be in material qualifications by education and culture, lacks in godly qualities. As such, Arjuna, just after seeing his kinsmen, friends and relatives on the battlefield, was at once overwhelmed by compassion for them, who had so decided to fight amongst themselves. So far as his soldiers were concerned, he was sympathetic from the beginning. But he felt compassion even for the soldiers of the opposite party, foreseeing their imminent death. And while he was so thinking, the limbs of his body began to quiver, and his mouth became dry. He was more or less astonished to see their fighting spirit. Practically the whole community, all blood relatives of Arjuna, had come to fight with him. This overwhelmed a kind devotee like Arjuna. Although it is not mentioned here, still one can easily imagine that not only were Arjuna's bodily limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. Such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to weakness, but due to his soft-heartedness, a characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord. It is said, therefore, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate suraha harau abhaktasya kuto mahadguna mano ritena satidhavato bihihi. One who has unflinching devotion for the personality of Godhead has all the good qualities of the demigods, but one who is not a devotee of the Lord has only material qualifications that are of little value. This is because he is hovering on the mental plane and is sure to be attracted by the glaring material energy. Text 29. Vipatush chat sharide me romaharshas chajayate gandivan sangsrite yasha astat chakchaiva paridayate. My whole body is trembling. My hair is standing on end. My bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. Purport. There are two kinds of trembling of the body, and two kinds of standings of the hair on end. Such phenomena occur either in great spiritual ecstasy or out of great fear under material conditions. There is no fear in transcendental realization. Arjuna's symptoms in this situation are out of material fear, namely loss of life. This is evident from other symptoms also. He became so impatient that his famous bow Gandiva was slipped. He became so impatient that his famous bow Gandiva was slipping from his hands, and because his heart was burning within him, he was feeling a burning sensation of the skin. All these are due to a material conception of life. Text 30. Nachasok nomyabastatum brahmativa jame manaha nimitani japashyami vipari tani Kesava. Vipari tani Kesava. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself, and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Kesha demon. Purport. Due to his impatience, Arjuna was unable to stay on the battlefield, and he was forgetting himself on account of this weakness of his mind. Excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence. Bhayam tvitiya baniveshata syat. Such fearfulness and loss of mental equilibrium take place in persons who are too affected by material conditions. Arjuna envisioned only painful reverses in the battlefield. He would not be happy even by gaining victory over the foe. The words nimitani, viparitani are significant. When a man sees only frustration in his expectations, he thinks, why am I here? Everyone is interested in himself, in his own welfare. No one is interested in the Supreme Self. Arjuna is showing ignorance of his real self-interest by Krishna's will. One's real self-interest lies in Vishnu or Krishna. The conditioned soul forgets this and therefore suffers material pains. Arjuna thought that his victory on the battle would only be a cause of lamentation for him. Text 31. Nachashreyo nupashyami hatva swajanamahave nakangshe vijayam Krishna nacharajyam sukhanicha. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. Purport. Without knowing that one's self-interest is in Vishnu or Krishna, conditioned souls are attracted by bodily relationships, hoping to be happy in such situations. In such a blind conception of life, they forget even the causes of material happiness. Arjuna appears to have even forgotten the moral codes for a Kshatriya. It is said that two kinds of men, namely the Kshatriya who dies on the battlefront and the person in the renounced order of life who is absolutely devoted to spiritual culture, are eligible to enter into the sun globe, which is so powerful and dazzling. Arjuna is reluctant even to kill his enemies, let alone his relatives. He thinks that by killing his kinsmen there would be no happiness in his life, and therefore he is not willing to fight, just as a person who does not feel hunger is not inclined to cook. He has now decided to go into the forest and live a secluded life in frustration. But as a Kshatriya, he requires a kingdom for his subsistence, because the Kshatriyas cannot engage themselves in any other occupation. But Arjuna has no kingdom. Arjuna's sole opportunity for gaining a kingdom lies in fighting with his cousins and brothers and reclaiming the kingdom inherited from his father, which he does not like to do. Therefore, he considers himself fit to go to the forest to live a secluded life of frustration. 32 through 35. Kim no rajena govinda, kim bhogar jivitena va, yesham arte kanchitam no, rajam bhoga sukhanicha, ta ime vashtita yudhe, pranam chaktva dananicha, acharyak pitarak putras, tataiva chapita maha, matulak shwasurak pautraha, shalak sambaninastata, etanna hantumichami, gnatopi madhusudana, apitrailokya rajasya, heto kim nu mahi krite, nihatya dhartarashtrana, kapriti syaj janardana. O Govinda, of what avail to us our kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will be derived from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Purport. Arjuna has addressed Lord Krishna as Govinda, because Krishna is the object of all pleasures for cows and the senses. By using this significant word, Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses. But Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our own senses are gratified. Materially, everyone wants to satisfy his senses, and he wants God to be the order supplier for such satisfaction. The Lord will satisfy the senses of living entities as much as they deserve, but not to the extent that they may covet. But when one takes the opposite way, namely, when one tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda, all desires of a living entity are satisfied. Arjuna's deep affection for community and family members is exhibited here partly due to his natural compassion for them. He is therefore not prepared to fight. Everyone wants to show his opulence to friends and relatives, but Arjuna fears that all his relatives and friends will be killed on the battlefield, and he will be confirmed by Sri Train. Hare Krishna. Everyone wants to show his opulence to friends and relatives, but Arjuna fears that all his relatives and friends will be killed on the battlefield, and he will be unable to share his opulence after victory. This is a typical calculation of material life. The transcendental life, however, is different. Since a devotee wants to satisfy the desires of the Lord, he can, Lord willing, accept all kinds of opulence for the service of the Lord. And if the Lord is not willing, he should not accept a farthing. Arjuna did not want to kill his relatives, and if there were any need to kill them, he desired that Krishna kill them personally. At this point, he did not know that Krishna had already killed them before their coming onto the battlefield, and that he was only to become an instrument for Krishna. This fact is disclosed in following chapters. As a natural devotee of the Lord, Arjuna did not like to retaliate against his miscreant cousins and brothers, but it was the Lord's plan that they should all be killed. The devotee of the Lord does not retaliate against the wrongdoer, but the Lord does not tolerate any mischief done to the devotee by the miscreants. The Lord can excuse a person on his own account, but he excuses no one who has done harm to his devotees. Therefore the Lord was determined to kill the miscreants, although Arjuna wanted to excuse them. Text 36. Papam eva sharyat asman hatvaitan atatayinaha tasman narha vayam hantum dartarastran chabhandavan swajanam hikatam hatva sukhina syama madhava. Translation. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune? And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? Purport. According to Vedic injunctions, there are 6 kinds of aggressors. 1. A poison giver. 2. One who sets fire to the house. 3. One who attacks with deadly weapons. 4. One who plunders riches. 5. One who occupies another's land. And 6. One who kidnaps a wife. Such aggressors are at once to be killed, and no sin is incurred by killing such aggressors. Such killing of aggressors is quite befitting in any ordinary man, but Arjuna was not an ordinary man. But Arjuna was not an ordinary person. He was saintly by character, and therefore he wanted to deal with them in saintliness. This kind of saintliness, however, is not for a Kshatriya. Although a responsible man in the administration of a state is required to be saintly, he should not be cowardly. For example, Lord Rama was so saintly that people even now are anxious to live in the kingdom of Lord Ram, Rama Raja. But Lord Rama never showed any cowardice. Ravana was an aggressor against Rama because Ravana kidnapped Rama's wife, Sita. But Lord Rama gave him sufficient lessons, unparalleled in the history of the world. In Arjuna's case, however, one should consider the special type of aggressors, namely his own grandfather, own teacher, friends, sons, grandsons, and so on. Because of them, Arjuna thought that he should not take the severe steps necessary against ordinary aggressors. Besides that, saintly persons are advised to forgive. Such injunctions for saintly persons are more important than any political emergency. Arjuna considered that rather than kill his own kinsmen for political reasons, it would be better to forgive them on grounds of religion and saintly behavior. He did not, therefore, consider such killing profitable simply for the matter of temporary bodily happiness. After all, kingdoms and the pleasures derived therefrom are not permanent, so why should he risk his life and eternal salvation by killing his own kinsmen? Arjuna's addressing of Krishna as Madhava, or the husband of the goddess of fortune, is also significant in this connection. He wanted to point out to Krishna that as husband of the goddess of fortune, he should not induce Arjuna to take up a matter which would ultimately bring about misfortune. Krishna, however, never brings misfortune to anyone, to say nothing of his devotees. Text 37 and 38. Yadyapyete shapashyanti lobo pahata chetasaham kulakchaya kritam dosham mitre drohe chapatakam katam na yeyamasmabi papat asman nivartitum kulakchaya kritam dosham prapasyad bir janardana. O Janardan, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime of destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? Purport. A Kshatriya is not supposed to refuse to battle or gamble when he is so invited by some rival party. Under such an obligation, Arjuna could not refuse to fight, because he had been challenged by the party of Duryodhana. In this connection, Arjuna considered that the other party might be blind to the effects of such a challenge. Arjuna, however, could see the evil consequences and could not accept the challenge. Obligation is actually binding when the effect is good, but when the effect is otherwise, then no one can be bound. Considering all these pros and cons, Arjuna decided not to fight. Text 39. Kulak chaye pranashanti kula dharmak sanatanaha dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo bibabatyuta. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. Purport. In the system of the Varnashram institution, there are many principles of religious traditions to help members of the family grow properly and attain spiritual values. The elder members are responsible for such purifying processes in the family, beginning from birth to death. But on the death of the elder members, such family traditions of purification may stop, and the remaining younger family members may develop irreligious habits and thereby lose their chance for spiritual salvation. Therefore, for no purpose should the elder members of the family be slain. Text 40. Ardama, Adharma, Bibabat Krishna, Pradushanti Kulastriyaha, Strishu Dushta Subharshneya, Jayate Vardasankaraha. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. Purport. Good population in human society is the basic principle for peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress in life. The Varnashram religion's principles were so designed that the good population would prevail in society for the general spiritual progress of state and community. Such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. As children are very prone to be misled, women are similarly very prone to degradation. Therefore, both children and women require protection by the elder members of the family. By being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled into adultery. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. So the different family traditions of religious activities should always engage them, and thus their chastity and devotion will give birth to a good population eligible for participating in the Varnashram system. On the failure of such Varnashram dharma, naturally the women become free to act and mix with men, and thus adultery is indulged in at the risk of unwanted population. Irresponsible men also provoke adultery in society, and thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. Text 41. Shankaro narakayaiva kulagnanam kulasya cha patanti bitado yesham luptapindotaka kriyaha. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life, both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. Purport. According to the rules and regulations of fruitive activities, there is a need to offer periodical food and water to the forefathers of the family. This offering is performed by worship of Vishnu, because eating the remnants of food offered to Vishnu can deliver one from all kinds of sinful actions. Sometimes the forefathers may be suffering from various types of sinful reactions, and sometimes some of them cannot even acquire a gross material body and are forced to remain in subtle bodies as ghosts. Thus, when remnants of prasadam, food, are offered to forefathers by descendants, the forefathers are released from ghostly or other kinds of miserable life. Such help rendered to forefathers is a family tradition, and those who are not in devotional life are required to perform such rituals. One who is engaged in the devotional life is not required to perform such actions. Simply by performing devotional service, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers from all kinds of misery. It is stated in the Bhagavatam, Devarshi bhutaptaninam pratinam nakinkaro nayam rini charajan sarvatmana yak sharanam sharanyam kato mukundam parihrityakartam. Anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligation, and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by performance of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 42. Doshire etak kulagnanam vanasankarakadakahai utsadyante jatadharma kuladharmas chashashvataha. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. Purport. Community projects for the four orders of human society, combined with family welfare activities as they are set forth by the institution of Sanatana Dharma or Varnashram Dharma, are designed to enable the human being to attain his ultimate salvation. Therefore, the breaking of the Sanatana Dharma tradition by irresponsible leaders of society brings about chaos in that society, and consequently, people forget the aim of life, Vishnu. Such leaders are called blind, and persons who follow such leaders are sure to be led into chaos. 43. Uttanat kuladharmanam manushanam janardana narake niyatam baso babati janashushrama. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. Purport. Arjuna bases his argument not in his own personal experience, but on what he has heard from the authorities. That is the way of receiving real knowledge. One cannot reach the real point of factual knowledge without being helped by the right person who is already established in that knowledge. There is a system in the Varnashram institution by which before death one has to undergo the process of atonement for his sinful activities. One who was always engaged in sinful activities must utilize the process of atonement called the prayaschitta. Without doing so, one certainly will be transferred to hellish planets to undergo miserable lives as a result of sinful activities. Text 44. Aho bhatta mahat papam kartum vyavasitat vayam yad raja sugalobena hantum swajanamudyataha. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. Purport. Driven by selfish motives, one may be inclined to such sinful acts as the killing of one's own brother, father, or mother. There are many such instances in the history of the world, but Arjuna, being a saintly devotee of the Lord, is always conscious of moral principles and therefore takes care to avoid such activities. Text 45. Yadimam apratikaram ashastram shastrapanayaha dartarashtra rane hanyus tanme che padaran babet. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Purport. It is the custom, according to Kshatriya fighting principles, that an unarmed and unwilling foe should not be attacked. Arjuna, however, decided that even if attacked by the enemy in such an awkward position, he would not fight. He did not consider how much the other party was bent upon fighting. All these symptoms were due to soft-heartedness, resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. Sanjaya uvacha evam uktvarjunak sankye rito pashta upavishat vishvijya istachat vishvijya sasharam chapam shukasam vignamanasah. Sanjaya said, Arjun, having thus spoken of the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. Purport. While observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bow and arrows. Such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita in the matter of observing the armies on the battlefield of Kuruksetra. Hare Krishna. So, let's have some reflections. It's after 8 o'clock. There's all kinds of subject matters to discuss in this chapter. Any reflections, comments, questions, corrections? Yes, Sarva.
Usually, in many literary works like this, the word commentary is used, but Prabhupada uses the word purport. I just wondered if you've thought of the meaning of purport as opposed to commentary, if there's any insight on that.
Well, the word purport is slightly different than commentary, right? And anybody can make a comment,
Right.
you know, and even comment from their own opinion. But purport means what the actual meaning of this is, what the extended meaning is, how to apply that meaning to different subject matters, and ultimately, in this case, the ultimate goal, the ultimate subject matter. And this is the key. As usual, you're asking fantastic questions. Being a literary man yourself and a scholar, you know, it's important that, you know, we understand the purport of this book. Most important, because it's a fact that all the arguments given by Arjuna were from Shastra. They were all religious. Every argument that he gave was according to religious principles given in Shastra. Therefore, a person without transcendental realization may come to the wrong conclusion that Arjuna had the right arguments and Krishna had the wrong arguments, and therefore the whole thing is a waste of time. Therefore, the purport's needed. The purport's needed. You know, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless one can at least theoretically understand this, then he will have struggle with the Bhagavad-Gita. And Prabhupada in the preface or the introduction recommended that at least what we do is in drama. We have a dramatist here, producer in drama. I think that's what you produce, drama, is it? Yeah. There's a phrase called what is it, set aside, or what's the word I'm looking for? Your suspend your disbelief. We need to, if we're materialistic and we have a tendency to not believe in God, then we can't understand the Bhagavad-Gita. But if we can suspend our disbelief, like when we watch a drama and there are people there that we know who they actually are, but they're dressed up in different costumes, and you know, maybe one of the persons is a relative or something, and we're going, oh, look, he looks like this, but actually I know he's this. He won't be able to actually, you know, perceive and get the actual message of the drama. So it's like that a little bit, you know. All of us are not very qualified by birth in the Kali Yuga, especially in America and Western countries. It's not a spiritually based culture actually, and therefore the tendency to be cynical and suspicious and all these things are kind of natural. So we have to suspend our disbelief and listen to the purport. Therefore, Prabhupada emphasized the purports even more than the verses, which are being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. The purports are required to be able to understand what Krishna is saying and why. He has the ultimate good of the whole human society in his mind by convincing Arjuna to fight this battle. When the demigods went to Krishna to ask him to come into the material world at this time, it was because the earth was distressed because of the overburden, how do you put it? The defense forces, the overburdened defense forces. Now you see in the world, you know, this one's rattling swords and that one's rattling swords, but now they're rattling more than swords. You know, they're rattling nuclear weapons, you know, at each other. You know, don't do this, rattle, 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 or we'll shoot you. And you know, North Korea's, you know, trying to hit the United States from where they are, and it's just a hellish situation is being created. Everyone's in fear, and no one can live a peaceful life. You go to the airport, and you have to have now your bags have to be searched another time, and then another time, and then another time, and they want to take away your, you know, electronic goods because they might put a bomb in it, and everybody is just up in, you know, everything being topsy-turvy. So this, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is described to be the actual desire and pleasure of the demoniac nature. The demoniac nature enjoys turning the established order upside down. Does that sound like our present leader? Oh, hope we didn't make a offense there. But anyway, and not only that, but in the other Puranas, there are Puranas in which it's described that the demigods and the demons who lived originally when the world was created, the universe, the cosmic manifestation was created, the demons and the devotees were in separate, you know, not just separate planets, but separate, you know, planetary systems. They were way, way far from one another. But as the Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga and Dwapara Yuga come, then they become closer and closer together. And now what happened was the demons and the demigods, they took birth at the time of Krishna's appearance, and they wanted to duke it out. You know how sometimes this gang and that gang, you know, on the streets of some city, they meet sometimes on the street, and then you just duke it out. You know, that's what they want to do. You know, so the demigods and the demons are there to duke it out. Krishna told the demigods, take birth in the family of the Yadus and assist me in this mission. And what was his mission? Paritranaya sadhana, vinachaya sadhuska. We're going to learn about this in the next chapter, the very beginning of the teachings. So far, we're just setting up. This is setting up the, you know, the scene so that the teachings can come out. Now, the next chapter will begin the teachings of the Bhagavad-Gita. So, the ultimate aim of Krishna was to clear the planet of unnecessary defense forces so that ordinary, simple-hearted, common people can be peaceful. And it was like that for a long time after the Battle of Kuruksetra. It was like World War II, you know. Everybody came up and stood up and said, no, we're not going to let Hitler do this. Actually, after he killed so many people on the basis of some bodily concept, and he's thinking they're the Aryans and everyone else needs to be purged in order for us to be, have a proper society in the world. Now the same thing's going on in America. The rich, wealthy, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, or whatever people, they're freaked out, Excuse me for using a colloquial term in such a elevated company, but they're greatly disturbed because they're losing their majority, they're losing their ability to their power, basically, because power is everything. People will give up sex for power. They'll give up everything for power. Even some of the great generals and conquerors, Napoleon, for instance, he gave up sleep and he gave up sex. Even Gandhi gave up sex, and he became powerful by that austerity, and he was able to influence, the Indian people to just, they didn't fight back, but they, what's the word? Peacefully, what is that? What is the word? Passive resistance. Passive resistance, yeah. So there's a moment when passive resistance doesn't work. And that is when the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself wants to clean the situation. And that's what's happening on the battlefield of Kuruksetra. The earth is overburdened with low-class demoniac men who are pretending to be rulers, pretending to be leaders. And therefore, in general, the people are suffering. I think you were mentioning to me last night, Edwin was mentioning to me last night, that there are more displaced people on the earth right now. Like, what was it, 60?
Between 62 and 63 million.
63
people.
million people are displaced because of the activities of demoniac leaders. So Krishna, he has a limit to what he can tolerate when it comes to devotees being abused by demonic forces. He has a limit. And when he comes to that limit, then he comes to the earth personally and he arranges everything. And no one can resist, or no one can change that destiny. And that's what's happening. And we'll see later on in the 11th chapter where Krishna actually reveals to Arjuna his universal form. Now the argument can be made that Arjuna was an eternal associate of Krishna, so how could he be an illusion? How could he become overcome with, ignorance? And the fact is that he can't. He knows everything. But Krishna personally put him into this confusion so that he could speak the Bhagavad-Gita for all of humanity, for future time. We've got an important man in the room. He's got people trying to get a hold of him. So that's the basic reason for the word purport. Why Prabhupada chose purport rather than commentary. It's stronger, it's more definitive, it's more, what's the word?
Authoritative.
Huh?
Authoritative.
Yeah, it's more authoritative. It's more. It produces faith. It gives the reader,
Purposeful.
Purposeful. Purposeful. Yeah, it comes from the same root. I want to hear from our relative newcomers, not newcomers to spiritual life, but relative newcomers to this atmosphere.
There's a lot. I feel like it's like a cloud of information and just little bits come in.
Yes, that's correct. Exactly correct.
So I'm here enjoying myself greatly.
I'm so happy to hear that. very happy to hear that. May you continue.
Thank you.
May you continue. May all of us continue who come to the point of being able to sit and hear Srila Prabhupada explain the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, the Bhagavad Gita is a great, very popular book. It's you know, yeah, it's studied by all people, and on the top of the, what's the word, the top of the chain, the top of the food chain of the religious people, they all study the Bhagavad Gita. Whatever religion they're in, they all know about the Bhagavad Gita.
I have a question.
Yes, Cora, please. Next generation.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, living in modern society,
Yeah.
and I guess in my generation especially, there are a lot of people, like feminists. So how do you deal with Prabhupada quoting Chanakya Pandit and saying women are less intelligent than men?
Well, I'll give you a little modern update, okay? I just read where there's a $230 billion industry in which men from different parts of the world find out about women who are lonely, and they convince them that they're their lovers without even having seen them, and they give them money. $230 billion, and they're all women. Sometimes women want to marry a criminal in the jail, not because they're bad people. It's not the women's fault at all. Not at all. You can read about the women's qualities, the actual feminine qualities in this book. You know, we'll hear about that later on, and they're all exalted qualities, the natural qualities of the feminine qualities, the natural. But they have a tendency to be easily misled because they're soft-hearted, more soft-hearted than men. They're emotional, like the women tend to cry more than men do, you know, and they overcome with their emotions. And it's not because they're not important, not that because they're second class, they're not. They're actually more important. And that the truth of that was in the one statement that, you know, the population, the quality of the population depends on womanhood. I mean, how many things do we learn from our mother from the beginning? That's all Vedic knowledge. That's all Vedic knowledge coming down through motherhood. That's the reason. But on top of that, it doesn't apply to devotee women. Devotee women are different, just like devotee men are different. So that's a statement that applies to. It's a general statement. It doesn't mean that there aren't women that are more intelligent than men. It's obvious. But in order to actually understand that one or two statements out of context, you have to understand the whole body of information. That's why, personally, I recommend that before we need to put that on the shelf until we hear the whole thing. And then we'll be able to put it into proper context. And anyone who knew Prabhupada, anyone who was with Prabhupada, especially his women disciples, they felt loved, protected, educated, you know, on all levels. On all levels. Even though he was saying these things in class and in his purports, but they knew that they could depend on him for protection and guidance and proper, and sometimes even better than their husbands or their whatever, leaders, male leaders, you know. So it needs explanation. And if a person's honest and sincere, then they'll accept these very simple and deep explanations. The reason it's like that is because the men have exploited the women like anything. They use their bodies for, you know, just sex toys, you know, and it's horrible, horrible situation. And now, you know, they say, oh, due to social conditions, you know, we're not allowed to go out into the battlefield and, you know, lay behind the man and shoot the enemies. Who wants to do that? I mean, I was lucky. I had bad elbows, so I got 4F. When they called us up in the draft to go to Vietnam, I didn't have to go, and I was like in ecstasy, So why should someone, be determined to go to the front of the battlefield? And it's a social pressure.
It kind of brings me to another question. I guess, I would say we kind of all being kind of in the ISKCON umbrella understand that. We see how Prabhupada treated those early women disciples. But I guess my question is, for newcomers, sometimes some parts of the Gita or some parts of Prabhupada's words can be really jarring. So as an editor, I just kind of want your opinion.
We need to be jarred. We need to be jarred. I was here the other night. I had, one man ask me, Prabhupada is so repetitive, and his voice was so dripping with condescension, and I looked right at him and he said, that's because you need to hear that you're not your body again and again and again, because you don't believe it. You still think you're your body, right? And he just went, he was shocked, and then afterwards I got on his case, pretty heavy actually, and afterwards he thanked me for correcting him. Prabhupada knew everything, and if you read his books honestly, you'll see that it's true that there's repetition, but you'll also see that in the verses themselves, in the Shastra, there are repetition of the same things. Even in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, which is Krishna's pastimes, which are like the goal, you'll hear a lot of descriptions about how we're not the body. Because it's the source of our suffering. And until you actually realize that you're not the body, and you're not the mind, and can see yourself as a spiritual being, then you will be prone to be bewildered by the material energy. And the more you are bewildered by the material energy, the more forceful your senses will go to sinful life. And as a result, we now have 62 to 63 million displaced human beings on this planet, with nowhere to go, no country, no family, nothing. Just because of the false egos of some alpha males, who think that they're... because they've lost track of the goal. What is the goal? The goal isn't to become superior to men as women, or women to men, or that's not the goal at all. That's why it is difficult to understand this book from the first chapter, because what Arjuna is saying is, from Shastra, how to keep human society organized in such a way that it's peaceful. There's a verse, the end of the second chapter, in which Krishna says to Arjuna, if you're not connected with Krishna in devotional service, then you can't be peaceful. And how can you be happy if you're not peaceful? Peace and happiness are connected together. So if you're always, fretting about, having to overcome some stigma because you're a man, or you're gay, or you're a woman, or you're whatever you are, then you can't be peaceful. Your mind is always thinking about, how am I going to overcome this? How am I going to overcome that? Satisfaction is a great austerity. In the 17th chapter, Krishna says, he describes austerity of the body, austerity of the words, and austerity of the mind. And in austerity of the mind, the first item in the list of what are austerity of the mind is satisfaction. So how satisfaction is austerity? Normally we think of austerity as something that you voluntarily do that's uncomfortable in order to get a higher goal in the end. To get your degree, or to get your whatever. You have to go through some austerity, So how is it that satisfaction is an austerity?
Well, I think because you have to, you have to make the decision to be okay with what you have and not want more.
Well, that's a symptom. That's a symptom. But the reason is, the root is, because the natural tendency of the mind in the material world is to be dissatisfied. The mind is always dissatisfied. They have the saying, these are just common sense. The grass is greener on the other side of the fence. On the other side of the mountain, there must be something better. So I'm going to go to the top of the mountain and look over and see, find something better, whatever. So therefore, to be satisfied with what we've been given by our nature, by our prarabdha karma, as we say in the Vedic scriptures, or by destiny or providence, we say in other, philosophical teachings, then our mind cools down, and then we can see things for what they are, and then we can hear the truth coming from Shastra. What does Jesus say? That those who have ears hear. One of the conditions of an ear that can hear is the ability to be satisfied with what you've been given as your, by providence, by destiny. And not always trying to change your destiny. If we try to do something impossible, we create a complicated situation, more and more and more and more, until it becomes out of hand. And that's what's going on the earth right now. It's out of hand. And everyone sees, the common people are looking at, what's going on at the top. They're saying, my God, what is going on? And the Bhagavatam says in the 12th canto, eventually, common people will run to the hills to try to get out of the excessive taxation and plundering of the so-called leaders. And it's beginning to happen. Written 5,000 years ago. The truth hurts sometimes. Hare Krishna. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for your ears and for your hearts.